that the prophets do not even try to depict what the world to come is, because whatever you will say, it's falling endlessly short of what it is. So whatever way you could depict it, you're not doing due service or proper respect to what the world to come is. So what they speak about, they don't speak about the world to come. And he writes over here, the Rambam, this is in the 8th chapter, the 7th law. Husha Yeshayahu Omar, Isaiah the prophet says, Ayin lo rosa elokim zu losecho, yaseh lemechakevo. Meaning, the only eye that ever knows what the world to come is only God himself. And it will only be known when we wait for it and we come to experience it. Klomar, hatova shelo rosa osa ayin novi. Even the eye of the prophet cannot fathom, understand what the world to come is. Lo rosa elo lokim. Only God himself knows what it is. Ase osa elokim l'odam shechaklo. God created it for man to await the world to come. But you will not know what it is until you arrive there. I once told over a story. There was a man, and he, when my Rosh Yeshiva had come from to start the yeshiva in Baltimore, he was one of the people who helped him start the yeshiva. His name was Mr. Walpert. And he was a very wealthy person, and he was an observant Jew, relatively speaking. And all the years, from 1933 till into 2000, whatever it was, 10, he was involved with the yeshiva. On his 100th birthday, he lived till 100, and he was still driving a car until he was nearly 100 years old. He was in relatively good health. And he was the guest of honor for the banquet that year, and he was celebrating his 100th birthday. So people approached him and said to him, how does it feel to be 100? That's the question they asked him. So he said to them, you come to the dinner tonight, I'm going to talk about it. Right now, I'm not going to respond. Okay? Comes, the dinner is happening, and it's his 100th birthday. And he says he would like to tell over a story. What's the story? I may have told this in the past, but it brings this out, this point that the Rambam speaking about over here, that the Poland during the 1800s was under the control of the Russians. And the Polish citizenry, together with the king who was in exile, they rebelled against Russia, and they overthrew the Russian government who was in control of Poland, and they regained their freedom. And the Polish king was reinstated, reinstalled, he had a new coronation, King of Poland. And towards when the rebellion was taking place, the Russians thought, they knew if they would catch the king and kill the king, that would quell the rebellion. So they thought they had an idea where he was, and they pursued him. So the king of Poland runs into a Jew's home, and he says to the Jew, you must hide me, because they're looking for me, and if you don't hide me, they're going to kill me. So the Jew says to the Polish king, but if I hide you and they find you, not only are they going to kill you, they're going to kill me and my whole family. Therefore, I can't hide you. I can't take the risk. King of Poland says, if you don't hide me, I will kill you. He had no choice. And when you're under that level of pressure, you become very creative, very innovative. So he had an idea. What's the idea? In the corner, he had a lectern, and he had his talis and tefillin there. And he says to the king of Poland, I'm going to put on my talis on you. I'm going to put my tefillin on you. And you go in the corner, and you stand by the lectern with a prayer book, and you just sway. Just keep swaying as if you're praying. And that's what he did. The Russians come into the house. They break the door down because they suspect the king is there. And they say, is the king here? He says, no. Meantime, there's this person praying in the corner with a talis and tefillin. And they start ripping up the floorboards. They start tearing up the ceilings. They take the house apart, literally. And they realize he's not there. And they leave. And this Jew saved the king of Poland. They saved his life. When the king, finally, when the coast was clear, he takes the talis off the king, his tefillin off the king. So he says to the king, when they came in the house and he started to literally tear the house apart, what did you feel? At that moment, he didn't answer him. Didn't answer him. Okay? Fast forward. Poland regains its independence again. The king is reinstated. There's a major banquet for the king. And who's the guest of honor next to the king? The Jew. The Jew who saved his life. So the Jew is sitting next to him, and they're speaking about the praising of the Jew and so on and so forth. There's music playing. And the king says, when they finished the banquet, the Jew who saved my life, right now, with an armed guard, would take him to the gallows to be hanged. The Jew can't believe his ears. I mean, here they're praising him for saving the king. And this is the thank you, that they take him to the gallows. And not only that, I personally will put the noose around his neck before they drop the floorboard, that he will fall to his death. So people, they just can't understand what's going on over here. They go and the music is playing, the drums are going, the death march, he's going to the gallows. Finally, they give the noose to the king. He personally puts it over the head of the Jew, tightens the knot. He's about to put the hood on his head. And the Jew says, before they drop the flag, I want to ask you a question. Everything doesn't make sense. Where's the thank you? Why are you doing this to me? He said to the Jew, he said, I want to explain you something. You asked me how I felt when they came into the house looking for me. I couldn't explain it. Now, when I put the noose around your neck, now you know exactly how I felt. Therefore, I couldn't explain to you why this is happening. I'm only fulfilling your request to know how I felt. That's what he said to him. So Mr. Walpert says, I can't explain to you what it feels to be like when 100. You have to be 100 to know what it means to be 100. That was the punchline. Lahavdil Elav Abdolas. There's no way to depict and explain and describe what the world to come is. Isaiah the prophet says, Ayin lo rosa elokim zu losecha. No human eye ever saw what the world to come is. Only God himself knows what it is. Only when you arrive there will you know what it is. But until you arrive, it's impossible to know what it is. So there's certain experiences in life, like the example, the 100 years. Until you're 100 years old, you don't know what it means to be 100 years. Okay, that was the story. It has relevance to what we're talking about over here. Talmud differentiates between a person who was able to see and became blind, and a person who never saw light in his life. A person who was born blind. There's a blessing we say in the blessings of the Kriya Shema, Yotze Or B'Rei Choshech. God forms light and creates darkness. We speak about God created luminaries. So there's a discussion. A person who one time was able to see, so he knows what light is. Although today he can no longer see, but he knows what light is. A person who never saw, you cannot even describe what light is because he was never able to see. As much as he tried, there's nothing comparable to give him an understanding of what it means light. When you feel it, it's this. It's not possible. Identically, that's what the world to come is. Only God, because God, it's a spiritual realm. We are physical beings. To be able to relate to an existence which has no relevance to our existence, it's an impossibility. So only when you come there, then you'll know what it is. So therefore, it's very interesting. A person could believe in reward and punishment. We say, Schar ba'al almaleko. Reward in this world doesn't exist. You can't be rewarded for a mitzvah. You have to wait till you arrive there. Because that's an unending situation there. It's eternal. But you want to know something? But since nobody ever came back to explain to you what it is, because only God knows, it's so abstract, removed from our mindset and our experience. Unless you have absolute faith, it's not enough of an impetus to draw you there that you're doing it for that reason. Unless the circumstance forces you to be there. Also, God created the world to come. It's something to wait for. We wait for it. The prophets, when they speak about the future, they speak about most of the messianic times. When the Mashiach will come, the physical world will be the same physical world. The perspectives are going to change. The values are going to change. But the physicality of the world is the same physicality of the world. People are just going to invest their lives differently because they can have a new level of clarity of understanding of what value is and what not value is. But the true world to come, the new existence, in the 8,000 year, God's going to create a new entity, which is a combination of physical, spiritual, where the physical will be spiritualized, that we will not recognize the physicality of the physical. Ayin lo rosa elokim zulasecha. That existence, not only talking about the soul world, the world which we recreate in the 8,000th year, you have no inkling what that's going to be. Now, there's a story in the Talmud. There was an emperor, Roman emperor. And he says to one of the great rabbis, he says, although it says in your Bible that you're not able to count the stars in the heaven, it's not computable. I know exactly how many stars there are in heaven. That's what he says to the rabbi. So what's the rabbi's going to disagree with the emperor? He'll throw him to the lions. So the rabbi says to the emperor, he says, I understand what you understand, but could you do me a favor? Could you please tell me how many teeth you have in your mouth? So the emperor puts his fingers in his mouth. He starts counting his teeth. So the rabbi says to the emperor, he says, I want to ask you a question. It's very confounding. You tell me you know the number of stars in heaven. And I ask you how many teeth you have in your mouth, and you have to put your finger in your mouth to count your teeth. If you don't know how many teeth you have in your mouth, how are you supposed to know how many stars there are in heaven? That's the question he asked the emperor. The emperor realized, he's doing it in the most respectful way, but, he got you up on your game. So the emperor says to the rabbi, he says, I want to meet your God face to face. The rabbi says, no problem. You want to meet him? We'll set up an appointment. Let's choose the highest mountain in Rome. We'll meet on the highest mountain at midday, and I'm going to introduce you to my God. The emperor goes to the highest mountain, and it's high noon. It's a sunny day, and he says to the emperor, you want to meet my God? Look straight into the sun. He looks in the sun. After a short period, he's getting blinded from the intensity of the sun. He says, I can't look any longer. He says to them, I want to ask you a question. You want to meet my God? The sun is a creation of God. So his creation you're not able to look at. So do you think you could really look at God himself? If you don't even have the capacity to tolerate his creation? Same takeaway. So if we're not able even to comprehend or relate to what exists in physical, something outside of the physical, which we have no relevance to, do you think you're able to achieve or come upon what it is? It's beyond our capacity. I know better. I'm just going to repeat again the story I said maybe a week or two ago. Person is a believing Jew. He believes in dietary laws. And he goes to the rabbi. He says, Rabbi, you're supposed to be a learned person, smart person. Could you explain to me why we must keep dietary laws? We're so advanced. We have all these various ways to prepare foods that there are no illnesses. We kill all the bacteria. There's no trichinosis in pork any longer. But why the dietary laws? Could you explain it to me? So he'd say, because God says you must keep it. He says, Rabbi, but you probably could explain it. So the rabbi says to this person, he says, could you explain to me Einstein's theory of relativity? So, and the person himself is a very smart man, very educated. He says, you realize, firstly, I'm not a physicist. Secondly, I don't have the genius of Einstein. So he says to this person, he says, you're telling me you don't have the genius of Einstein. And Einstein compared to God is infinitesimal, less than that. And you expect to understand God's mind. You don't understand Einstein's mind. You understand God's mind. To understand why dietary laws are not permitted. God wills every aspect of creation simultaneously, ongoing. Do you know what that takes? The dimension of that's divine genius beyond. So how do you expect to understand it? It's less than even scratching the surface. The world to come is Ayin L'Rosa Elokim Zu L'Secha. And God, unless God tells you what it is, there's no way to know what it is, even you live 10,000 years. Because you're a different dimension of being than what that is.